The big story on the show, we are talking about Israel is preparing for what would be the most decisive battle of this war. Operation Gideon's Chariots, the second time this is being put. Greenlit in the last 24 hours by Defense Minister of Israel, aims to capture Gaza City, Hamas's final stronghold. It comes after the first time this campaign was started, leaving stages in limbo, in fact leaving the several aspects of this in limbo, and Hamas fighters still embedded. So now what will be the future of Gaza City in the wake of this fresh push by Israel is going to be our key focus. 60,000 reservists have actually been brought in, and let's get you what that final push is all about with the numbers that really tell the story. Let's put out those numbers. First and foremost, 60,000 reservists have been brought in by Israeli Prime Minister as he wishes to put this as the final push to ensure that Hamas is completely decimated. Next up, IDF will encircle and isolate Hamas strongholds. Remember, there's been a lot of back and forth in terms of whether Israel is able to stamp out, weed out Hamas completely. They've been decimated quite significantly militarily, but the hostages remain. And that is the leverage that Hamas has, which is what IDF is trying to ensure, that they're able to encircle and ensure that they isolate them. Evacuation corridors will be cleared south for civilians. It's a huge civilian humanitarian crisis that Gaza City has been facing now ever since the war started after the attack on Israel on 7th of October 2023. But there will be a civilian corridor that will be created. This is the final push for which Israel is now preparing. Next up, the objective, total Gaza control by the IDF, something that Benjamin Netanyahu spoke about almost a fortnight back when he said that there has to be a new Gaza plan, maybe a new Gaza authority that will come in place because we want to ensure we put an end to this. And this is the plan, full and complete control of Gaza City. Is that possible? What happens next are questions that will come in later. Remember, that's day after. Right now, the battle continues, and this is what the plan is. Next up, hostage deal talks have been stalled. Military moves forward. There's been some update as far as what Hamas has been wanting to do. It wants a 2-month ceasefire. Of course, the condition is that they will continue to rearm, regroup. That's a deal breaker as far as Israel is concerned, which is why it's back to the battle lines, it's back to the front lines where decision will be taken. And lastly, operation framed as war's most decisive and final act. This is what many in the Israeli government feel is what it will take to finally put an end to this conflict that has taken about 1,291 civilians in the first initial assault that came in on Israel. Add to it the 250-odd hostages. And then on Israel, on Palestinian side, on Gaza side, the Gaza numbers, which are disputed, exaggerated, but for want of another statistic, stand at upwards of 60,000 people. This is the final assault, and this is what it will take to probably put an end to it. Now, viewers, this isn't the first time that Israel has marched towards Gaza City with promises of total victory. Just 90 days ago, Gideon's Chariot, the first time around when this operation started, was launched with the same bold objectives: defeat Hamas, free the hostages, and break Gaza's military grip, Hamas's military grip over Gaza. Instead, it ended in stalemate, strategic drift maybe. Here's why the first offensive fell short and what lessons may have been ignored by the IDF, by Israel. Take a look at this report.
Operation Gideon's Chariots 1 began on May 16th with the IDF mobilizing over 50,000 troops to penetrate Gaza. The stated goals were to seize control of key urban areas, dislodge Hamas militants, relocate civilians southwards, and secure the release of up to 50 hostages. Over the 78-day offensive, the IDF managed to gain control of approximately 75% of Gaza's territory, particularly in the northern and the central zones. However, Gaza City itself remains fiercely contested, with thousands of Hamas fighters entrenched within. Despite heavy fighting, the relocation of civilians southwards did not materialize as planned, with over 1 million Palestinians still residing in northern Gaza. The military also faced significant challenges securing the humanitarian aid corridors, disrupting the flow of food and medical supplies. Casualty figures during the operation included 48 IDF soldiers killed, while Palestinian civilian casualties continue to mount amid ongoing conflict. Most critically, the operation did not secure the release of any remaining hostages. Indirect negotiations for hostage release have stalled, with Israeli officials maintaining a firm stance that all hostages must be freed before any ceasefire. With these mixed outcomes, Operation Gideon's Chariots 1 has quietly drawn to a close. Its objectives only partially met as Israel now plans the next phase.
Now, viewers, this isn't the first time Israel has marched towards Gaza City with promises of total victory. 90 days ago, this same operation was launched with the same bold objective, which is to defeat Hamas, free the hostages and break Gaza's military grip. Instead, it ended in stalemate, strategic drift, and which is why the first offensive fell short. And what lessons that have been actually ignored is what we put out for you to better understand how in this war, now this has been a war that's been going on almost 2 years now. It will be on 7th of October, it's going to complete 2 years. There have been major inflection point, and this inflection point is what we were just telling you about. Gideon's Chariot, the first phase which resulted in a stalemate, and the second phase that is going to start now. We put out those details for you. Let's now get in General KJS Dhillon, who joins us on the broadcast for more on this. Sir, thanks much for speaking to me on Fault Lines. Let me start with you in terms of the lessons, the learnings. The last time IDF learned to ensure that now that the same operation is being launched again, will it actually lead to fulfillment of their military objectives?
Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon to your viewers. A lot of details have been shared in your initial stories. I would like to just give out a little perspective of the history in context of today's Operation Gideon Chariot 2. See, we know this problem is as old as 1948. In 1956-57, when the Suez Canal episode happened, that was also the time when Israel had occupied this area. Again, in 1967, after the Six-Day War, Israel again occupied this area. And somewhere in between, General Ariel Sharon devised a plan of something called 5 fingers. That means this strip, Gaza Strip, incidentally, is 41 kilometers north-south and 6 to 12 kilometers in depth at varying places, with Mediterranean Sea onto the west, Israel onto the north and east, and Egypt onto south. So it's a 40-kilometer long strip, which is all along the Mediterranean Sea. So Ariel Sharon came up with a concept of 5 fingers. That means divide this area with 5 militarized zones in between and break the contiguity of the strip. That also happened then in 2005. Israel unilaterally withdrew from this area, and right. 2006, which you referred to, Hamas took over this area. So these things have been happening in the past, and the circle is taking its full circle and coming back to the same thing. Now, coming to the operation which is happening now. As of now, the Gideon Chariot 2 aims to vacate or take over the Gaza city per se, which is somewhere in the northern part of Gaza Strip. And they have told the civilians to move southwards, that is towards the border with the Hamas or Egypt, and in the Rafah area and all that. Now, we have to understand this is not a military battle per se, it's an ideological battle. You can defeat Hamas militarily today in the Gaza city, okay. But the ideological battle and the ideological, acclimatization of the population will bring in more fighters.
What you're saying is correct, sir. In terms of the longevity of this conflict, vis-a-vis the immediate short-term military goals that Israel has. But the biggest goal that they have is to bring back the hostages, and for that, IDF has all along maintained we've got to defeat Hamas completely. And
Absolutely.
do you think that the operation being launched second time round will be able to achieve that for Israel?
I mean, this also, the offer made by Hamas of exchanging 10 hostages with a 60-day ceasefire to be declared by Israel has been negated by Israel. Israel wants all the 50 hostages back, and then only they say we'll talk about ceasefire. Now, if that offer has been set aside, the military campaign in Gaza City per se has been launched, and this military fighting in the built-up areas is a very, very strenuous fighting. In a built-up area where Hamas has been living in those areas for a number of years, IDF, that is Israeli Defense Forces, will encounter mines, they will encounter booby traps, they will encounter snipers sitting at vantage points and taking on one by one. So it's going to be a long-drawn battle. It's not going to be an easy fighting in built-up area of whatever is left of Gaza City. It is not easy. And secondly, will the civilians withdraw 100%? Because Hamas has been always using civilian as a human shield.
That's the real challenge, yeah.
And that is a tactic. And third point is the humanitarian aids, which has to be brought in because people don't want the aged, the ladies, the children to die in this conflict.
All right.
So there are varying aspects of this conflict. Military is only one aspect.
Absolutely. Military is only one aspect to it. There are humanitarian concerns.
Yeah.
Then we spoke about the ideological aspects, which is the origins of why this continues and why it's unlikely to potentially die anytime soon. But I have to leave it there. General Dillon, thanks so much for speaking to me on fault lines, on a military battle that has many nuances and many aspects to it. And viewers, that's really what we are picking up as far as when you take off your blinkers, this is what you understand. That as far as Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned, he's made it clear he sees himself not just as a wartime leader, but as the executor of a historic and spiritual mission to secure the promised land. His connection to the concept of Greater Israel, an idea that many say is rooted in biblical boundaries and modern geopolitics. It erases and in fact it puts this war in existential terms. That's what makes this particular conflict, this particular push by IDF more than just a follow-up operation. It's a pivot point because behind every military plan lies a political endgame, and Netanyahu's may not just stop at Gaza. Critics argue that this vision risks perpetual conflict, stretching Israel's military into potentially years-long engagements, straining its global alliances, even as the humanitarian crisis continues in Gaza City, Gaza area. There's a very large civilian population crammed into a very small area, which is likely to worsen given that this conflict is unlikely to reach to an immediate military solution, because Gideon's push the second time round, that when it starts, it is not going to achieve its military objective overnight. And that is why this needs to be seen in that context.